I'm back. This is Eddie Troxler again, jazzchat.org. You can find us on the internet. The website is up now. We'll have more downloads. Today I have my friend Michael Greenstein. We haven't really played together, but we've talked a lot about jazz.
Yeah, it's like
And I know he is your alumni of Berkeley, or
I went there for 4 years.
Yeah. I have another my second or third when I had Eric Clough, who we were at Berkeley again, and we were talking about we had to kind of unlearn a lot of the formal education to play, but and I know Berkeley gets a bad rap sometimes, but there's a lot of working musicians that did go there, So I think it teaches you to play as opposed to the conservatory attitude originally was more to teach you to teach. I think that, and for me, it just allowed me to be around people who were more serious about it for the time I was there, and to be around people that were putting that time into it, rather than just playing on the weekends or whatever. But anyway, we have chose this tune back home in Indiana. The copyright is pretty early. Do you know the copyright?
No.
But we're well within our public domain. I always search them. It's covered by a lot of different people, and we were talking earlier. One of my favorites, Lester Young, with I think it's Barney Kessel does a cool intro. There's a ton of versions. If you're a jazz, if you're really into jazz, you may know Donna Lee is the same chord changes, Charlie Parker, but a lot faster most of the time. But anyway, we'll jump into it and we'll talk about it a little bit. 8 bars up front, right? Awesome. So that was Indiana. Take a look at it, or listen to some different versions of it. I haven't played it a lot, so hopefully I didn't get too. Hopefully I made Michael sound good. uh, like we said, we introed it with which is standard. If generally if you're piano or guitar, um, they might just say, "Okay, set it up," which would just mean, and we would probably say the last four, last eight, or something like that, just to get us into the song, which kind of establishes the tempo. And also, one of my main objectives, I got to tell the band where the downbeat is, or the first, by the way I play whatever I'm playing.
I believe Lester Young would count off tunes by going,
Yeah, I've seen people do lots of different stuff that, um, but the more you work with somebody too, there's some unwritten communication that's going on there that you can start to feel each other. I think the piano player, I'll have her on toward, I think, the end of this month or the next, that I've played probably more gigs with than anybody. We already know what each other's going to play without even, because we've done so many gigs together. And guitar and piano, it's a little different. We can't both comp at the same time. I guess we could, but it's not going to sound very good.
that's tricky.
And here, in this particular situation we're in now, I'm using some more full chords because we don't have a bass player and we don't have a drum or any other instrument. So I'm pretty much trying to play some of those bass lines, which if we had a bass player, I would probably be grabbing some different stuff rather than.
I could have tried to walk a bass line on the trumpet, which sometimes has a good effect, other times sounds wonky.
Yeah, and if we would rehearse some of that, but
Yeah.
we could probably do something like that. But and another thing, we were in the tune. I was like, while we were playing, I said, "Well, just let me know when you want to go back to the head." That the head is the basic melody that generally we might say, "Okay, take the head in." We'll each take a solo. You take the head out. That just means the basic melody. A lot of jazz players, they don't really play too much of what's written there. I'm not sure if that was because it was their creativity, or I think during that era that they were really watching those people playing covers in bars, so they knew they could get by with 8 measures of someone else's melody.
It seems to depend on the melody. Some melodies, like a Cole Porter song, every note is just so perfect. You want to play it unadorned. Indiana, by itself, you just play the melody. It's sort of lacking a little. And it seems like Lester Young almost immediately launches off into, he'll reference the melody, but it seems to definitely depend.
Yeah, and it is quite well, for this, or for example, like Summertime, or it's quite different than the original. They were whatever the show tune was. There's a whole nother part that they did for the whatever play it was written for. I can't remember, but if you can find the originals. It's like 20s or something.
With Summertime, I love George Gershwin's writing so much. I try to do my best to not add extra funny stuff.
Yeah, but if you listen to, Coltrane or Kenny Burrell or somebody do Summertime, they're wet. It's not nothing like there's some really cool stuff going on, but
you can also have on the underpinning, the chord reharmonization and
yeah. Coltrane thought a lot about that stuff. I mean, he was way up there as far as theory, I think.
Definitely.
Yeah, and then, so yeah, Indiana, we were in the key of F, which is the standard real book key, and then sometimes it's one of those tunes you might find it under the I's, you might find it under B for Back Home Again in Indiana.
And then there's that great thing on YouTube of who's that guy? The guy from the Wrecking Crew, guitarist, singer.
Was it
Famous guy.
Tedesco?
No, the more famous guy.
Glenn Campbell.
Glenn
Glenn Campbell.
just
Oh, he did his song.
shredding on it. Unbelievable. He was a song.
He was a great player, you know. There were a lot of those, you know, people from that era that were incredible players, you know. And then they found out they could make more. As like, you know, well, I grew up in the South, but we used to watch Hee Haw. But they found out they could make more money doing comedy. But they were some of the best players in the world. You know, Roy Clark was on there, and Glenn Campbell was on there quite regular, you know. And who else was on there? Buck Owens, you know.
Yeah.
Great guitar players, you know. And they were session players before that, you know.
But the comedy definitely reached people more.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. I was glad that we were exposed to a lot of, you know, cool stuff. For me growing up, you know, my father was in his 40s when I was born, so he had some old Benny Goodman and like Duke Ellington records and stuff, and I would go through those and listen to them. My mother was quite a bit younger than him, so she brought us home our first Beatles album. So we kind of were exposed to a lot of it. And my father, you know, he always wanted us to have music available. We did, I guess, from that era, probably still, you know, middle class families, they put their kids in piano lessons.
Yep.
So we all took piano. I can't say that I learned a lot, but and we did have we had one of those organs that were popular in the 70s, late 60s, 70s, with the, you know, different rhythms and stuff. Because I guess one of the it was a tune we were doing, I think last week or the week before. I forget which one, but the music called for a foxtrot, which you don't see that so much anymore. Or but that was one of the drum beats on that organ we had. So that's how I just thought, well, that sounds cool. Foxtrot. I was thinking about, you know, foxes dancing or something.
And if you want a jazz groove, it was the Charleston or a reverse Charleston or something.
I forget what all the grooves were.
I think Charleston is da 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 da, and swing is da 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 da.
Yeah, and but that, you know, that was the latest technology of that particular era. You know, now we have, you know, just live tracks. You know, we can just put right in there. You know, and it's like a whole band to jam with.
Have you tried any of the interactive jamming platforms?
I haven't. I don't know. Have they got it to a point where it works yet?
Well, I can imagine you do some phrase, take a break, and then they add a little tasteful fill.
Oh yeah, that you know, that I could see, but I think there's still the latency. You know, I guess during COVID, I was doing some online lessons, and it was still difficult to, you know, just because there's a slight latency.
Yeah, I thought they got over that because I know some of those old guitar synths were latency was bad.
Yeah, but as far as playing with someone online, there's just...
Oh, I meant just completely with a program that interacts back.
I haven't tried that, but I
don't know what the names of the programs are.
I know that Band in a Box will create solos, you know, but...
If I can't look back and give the Benny Goodman evil eye at somebody, then, you know, there'll have to be some kind of optical thing where I can stare at it and they can get nervous. No, I learned to stop vibing people on stage a long time ago. It makes better music when everybody, especially in jazz, where there are technically no wrong notes. You know, you all you can do is you can know your changes as you do. You can know the time. You can never drag anybody. I always want to be the worst person in the band, and you know, and just have a good time.
Yeah, and that is what it's about. It's to me, it's like sitting here talking. You know, you go to school when you're a kid and you learn your alphabet, and then you learn to talk from your parents, and then you start studying all this stuff, and then much later you can actually express yourself through writing or talking or whatever. So the same with music, we learn all these basics, and whether, you know, some people seem to think it's a rite of passage. Oh, I never had lessons, you know. But you do. You have self lessons. You know, you have a way to process that information, and even people that, you know, if you watch videos of Wes Montgomery, he didn't read music, but he had a way of communicating what he wanted his band to play. You know, and he knew key signatures and all that stuff. He would.
I wonder how much like the didn't read music means with some, like I know Errol Garner, Chet Baker, and Wes are they famous for not reading music, but it might have been they weren't great sight readers. Anybody could probably read a chord chart. And in fact, I thought I saw something of him live in Europe, and he had some music on the bandstand. And obviously, he had the theory in his head, and he had two brothers that were masters. Like, there's no way he didn't know what was going on. I remember that Joe Pass instructional video where he goes, "I'm told this is an F7 with a 9."
Yeah.
And he learned in prison, but I couldn't believe you're told that?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I learned those ninth chords. I used to go watch this guy play in Greensboro, where I'm from. They would let me in even though I wasn't old enough. It was this guy, Bob Margolin. He owes me for that.
Famous Bob.
Yeah. He used to play down in Greensboro underneath the Hong Kong house all the time. And I would watch him play and I'd go home and try it out, And, Bob, he goes up and down the East Coast. He's still doing it. He had played for Muddy Waters when he was like 19 or something, so he had that style, but I would watch him. Back then I was, trying to learn blues and kind of drifting from the classic rock. For me, I grew up, other guitar players, we were playing, Leonard Skinner, Led Zeppelin, whatever was popular at the time, Aerosmith. We
were so steeped in the blues.
Yeah, we didn't have internet or anything in those days, so you could, you found friends who were kind of doing the same thing, and we would, exchange ideas, or you listen. In those days, it was tapes. So, and tapes, sometimes they run at different speeds, those cassettes, so that changes the pitch. So we would always just listen for that A, because all the rock songs had an A in there somewhere, and you can find the A. And turn your A, then tune your guitar to that.
Yeah.
But then there were some guitar magazines, we'd have to go to a record store or somewhere to find those. And
did you learn tab before you learned to read guitar?
No, I never learned tab till much later on.
That,
and I would see it in magazines, but it didn't work too well for me. Because once I did decide to pursue music somewhat formally, probably toward the end of high school, I started studying classical guitar at
fell in your position
with UNCG teachers. I wasn't really enrolled at UNCG, but and I assumed if I went back to school, it would be either UNCG or North Carolina School of the Arts, which were kind of focused more on classical, and which is fine. I think there's some great rock players that are classical guitarists, and there are jazz players too that originally studied classical.
I'm trying to think who some of those guitarists might be. Jim Hall, did he start in classical as a kid?
Possibly.
He almost has the sensibility of a classical player, but he would say it was because of his lack of ability to play fast. But what an amazing player!
Yeah, he was a good player. All those. And there's still some good players around. I mean, Kenny Burrell's still alive, right?
Yeah,
still playing. I've read
of that era. He might be one of the last ones.
Yeah, I've seen Charlie Bird play before. I saw a couple of those. I saw Les Paul play when he was still alive.
Wow, that's great. Every Monday night at the Iridium.
Yeah, he would do 2 shows. He was nice. It was
fantastic.
I knew he did signings after his second show, so I took a white pick guard and got him to sign it. I still have it at home.
That's cool.
Yeah. And I was going to put it on my Les Paul, but I traded the Les Paul for it. I don't think it would look.
Hey, having a Benedetto letter is just as cool.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
Maybe not for the masses, but
yeah. But yeah, Indiana. If you were thinking about soloing, we've talked about this a little bit with my other guest. Chords within a key. How to know, like, if I were to the chords within the key of F. Would be if I'm just going up to.
So it immediately breaks out of it with the second chord.
And it's more like, I think my second episode with Eric Clough, you can find it on jazzchat.org. We were doing Sweet Georgia Brown, which I think that says it's an A flat. or something.
Ends up there.
Well, it does, but it's more like a blues, you know, if you're thinking about solo, it's like an F blues, you know. Blah, blah.
The way it does this Surf Cycle 5 thing,
Yeah.
it's a unique form for sure. Actually, I'd say it's like a cousin to Indiana in the way that it has that kind of turnaround.
Yeah, it is similar. Yeah, and that's kind of, I'm kind of lost. I wasn't sure when you when you were, because this, it's not as easy as yeah, it's a 32 bar tune, but it's not like the AABA that we're a little more accustomed
It'd
to.
be like A, B, A prime or something, where it's like starts as another A, but then it has that tag ending, and I guess there are different ways to write.
Yeah, and you kind of like learn to listen for that.
I think one of the most misleading things in beginning jazz improvisation, although it got me started, was having a teacher say, okay, just play F Ionian scale for this many bars and then switch to D Dorian. And, if you're maybe doing 1 or 2 chord vamps, that's fine. But, I hear the Suzuki method starts with all ear training.
It did, yeah.
If people from the get-go were told just listen 100 times to Lester Young, especially him or Miles, where they play less notes, and just play those notes. Don't worry about what the theory is, but just start to imbibe the language. And because otherwise, you hear so many people that are like stuck before this like intermediate beginner stage where they're running scales. They're kind of missing the chords, sometimes going through them. They don't understand the shape and the phraseology, whereas all they have to do is love the music enough to memorize it. Because just like we're talking right now, like we just learn the language.
That's it. And I learned all that stuff in college too. All the melodic minors, harmonic minors, all that.
Has a place. I think great.
The jazz players were always talking about that Lydian flat 7.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you do with that?
It can help sometimes.
It does, but I really don't think too much about that, even though I'll probably use it a little bit now. And if you listen to, like, Django Reinhardt's one of my heroes, especially from this, 20s, 30s, because most of his stuff's public. I don't think he could even like read literature very well.
Yeah.
But he had a way, and he grew up with, I know it's, I think you're supposed to say Sinti Romanian these days. People still do say gypsy jazz, but that might be derogatory to some people.
Chord changes in the gypsy jazz. You get with the music, you have to call it gypsy jazz because no one's gonna know Romanian what.
Yes,
but I feel like there's a kinship to that in what later hard bop with the minor 7 flat 5 chords and where you're using melodic minor type sounds, harmonic minor, and almost spells out the chords without necessarily having to do the arpeggios. One could run up and down, but then it's a fine blend between melody, chord notes, approaches to the chord notes and scales, and patterns, things you just hear. At the end of the day, hopefully we're not thinking on the bandstand. That's the last thing anybody wants to do, right?
Yeah, and that's kind of the way I think, like that melody. So that, to me, guitar players, I think more than anybody, we think in these patterns, so that's my pentatonic that everybody learns in the beginning,
Yeah.
So I can kind of jam off that, at least when I'm on the first part, because that's my melody. And you kind of just want to, and then I come with my G minor, so I can, that here. And then if it's a really fast song, people don't really know if you hit the wrong note. But it's almost harder the ballads,
Yeah.
because you got to be more careful about what notes you play.
Nailing those 2/5s, it's the mystery of the 2/5, the 2/5/1. It's like you're not home, you go further away from home, and then you go home, and eventually that almost just boils down to not home.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what the ear kind of wants to hear is maybe. I mean, this is a little abstract. There's that dissonance resolving to a point. That's why, like in blues, like say if we were just doing that, I would throw in just a minor pentatonic on top of it, even though it's major chords, because
blues allows itself to like live in the dissonance and maybe never resolve.
Yeah, and it kind of, that would be really dissonant on top of it now, but to resolve it, to there. But I could also put the major pentatonic on it, F major, which would be my D minor pentatonic, right?
And the pianist desperately wanting to bend notes had to crush notes, and you kind of the birth of honky tonk.
That's true. I think really just playing a lot and loving what you do.
Yeah.
That's the way to get better.
I kind of wish that I didn't pour through all these books back in the day. Any book I could get my hands on, I would try to learn it. I'd get confused. A lot of it probably had great fundamentals, but it was all sitting there on the record. But that requires patience, maybe breaking your mom's tape player, which I did, and she was okay with it. That was learning Eric Clapton's Crossroads solo.
Oh, yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
The first one, I think.
Cool. We've got about 3.5 minutes. You want to play this again, or you have anything else you want to talk? Maybe we would run through it a time or two, or we could
do a blues.
We could do a blues. What key you like?
Let's do B flat.
B flat blues. This is a straight 12-bar blues, right?
Yeah.
Quick change on the first bar. 1, 2. All right, we're at 28 minutes and 47 seconds. I would really like to thank my friend Mike. It was really good to jam. We're going to have to do this more often. And thanks for tuning in to our jazzchat.org. If you have suggestions, try to be nice.
Did you get rough comments?
No.
Seems like everybody does. It's in the podcast world.
I'm really new to this too. So if you have suggestions on, any of this.
If there are any feisty jazz people who want to be contentious, please. I love it. In a good way, There's right now a very interesting internet feud going on with the great saxophonist Patrick Bartley and this kid. I can't remember the kid's name, but he called the Jazz Morphology Matrix is the name of his YouTube thing. And it's a bit of miscommunication, a little bit of gatekeeping, but all for the purpose and serving the love of jazz. So it's at the end of the day, it's not getting too ugly. But I guess apparently there are people in the comments that just, people make death threats over jazz comments. It's insane.
Oh, wow. But anyway, we're out of here. We got 2 minutes. Thank you for watching.